cannot achieve parallelism in its full spirit, right? You can still have parallel suites running, but running the entire test suite parallelly would probably, it's a good idea to have independent tests of each other. They're well organized. They're belonging to the same suite. You can reuse the code as much as you want. They're configurable, so from outside you can configure on how many tests you want to run in parallel, what are the emulators, emulator devices, platforms you want to run. So if you design your tests so that they're configurable from outside, it's much more easier to run them and configure them. And I will share this link, but this link has a lot of, almost all test frameworks that I can imagine. The tests are written in parallel, so you can just take the configuration or take the entire setup from there. It's a pretty neat library, I guess, a good collection of parallel tests. So what is Selenium Grid? So Selenium Grid is another web server, but the Selenium Grid is it's like a master-slave thing, where Grid becomes the master and all the other Selenium servers or remote servers becomes slaves. And in Selenium Grid, and the terminology here is a hub, so it acts as a hub and it manages other web drivers. So you're pointing your tests to a hub, and the hub is responsible for actually running the tests on the node. That's what they call it. Responsible for distributing tests. And the Appium server here is a node. So, so we would, in the demo too, I would explain how to set up a Selenium Grid, that is a hub. And the hub is nothing but a Selenium jar. You can start it as a role as hub, and it would start, and then we would register a few Appium nodes with it. And then you would point your tests to the hub, and then hub is responsible for distributing the tests on which node the test should run. That's how we would achieve parallelism with Appium. So set up the steps to set up Selenium Grid. So you need to download Selenium standalone jar, that would be your hub. And we would start the Selenium server with the role hub. So now there is a server that's started with the role hub. And then you start multiple emulators or devices, connect multiple devices to your machine, or run many emulators on different machines and connect it, and then on the same machine. And then you set up Appium to work with those devices. Currently, Appium can handle only one session at a time, so we would need to start multiple Appium sessions to have parallelism working. And you need to start, I'm running on the same machine. That's why I wrote a point that we want different ports on which Appium runs. But if they were running on the different machines altogether, then obviously they could have been running on the same port. And you need to define a configuration file. That's actually register, I guess. So if you were reading it. So we would define a configuration file which will have all the properties that you want to register your Appium session with the hub. I'm going to show what that is. And then we register the session. So now we have a master-slave thing, so hub is running, and then we registered a node or a slave with the hub. And yeah, there's a document on that. I can quickly show you how we are going to do that. Is that visible? Okay. So I think here is. So here I'm starting, so first I have few emulators running, and here I have a Selenium hub. So I'm starting a Selenium server that's a hub. So now we have Selenium Grid hub running. And then here I have one Appium server, and I'm pointing it to, is that visible, everybody? Okay, so I'm pointing that, I'm starting this on port 4000, and this is an Android session because I cannot parallelize two simulators, so I've chosen Android for this demo. So here, the important thing is I'm starting at port 4000, and then also if you see BP, that is Bootstrap port, so that's the port it would use to talk to your device. So even that should be different for both. So I'm starting this, and then if you see, I'm pointing out to an Android JSON file. So it's a node configuration file. So this is the file. So there are two devices running. One device is named as this one. So device name is the device that you want to connect this Appium server to, and the platform version, and the platform is Android, and the configuration also states where the hub is located. So it's running on my machine on 4000 port, and sorry, hub port is 4444, but the URL for the Appium session that we have just started is 4000. And similarly, I'll start one more session. So if you see here, this is in 4001 port, and even the Bootstrap port is different. So Bootstrap port is 2251, whereas that was 2250, I guess. So now we have started two Appium sessions, registered it with one hub that is running, that has now registered both of them. So now I'm going to run a test. So I'm going to show you the test code. So if you see the test code here, what is important here is the capabilities. So how this would work is, I would say what platform I need, what is the device name that I need, and the device name I have registered from each Appium. I have registered a device name on the hub. That's how when you send the test to a hub, it would see, oh, it's requiring a device name that is emulator 5556. Let me see which node is running this device. So it would try to match the capabilities that you send, and then it would try to match the nodes which it has registered with. If they both match, it would distribute the test onto that node. So that's how it works. So here on the test, I have this device name that is 5556, and one device name is 5554. And if you see the configuration, so if you see the configuration, one is registered with 5556, and the other is registered with 5554, and that's how it would run the tests. So let's run the tests now. Hopefully the demo works. I think I ran a different demo. So here you can see it got two test requests. One test is with device name as emulator 5556 and 5554. Oh, it started the test. So now it started the test, and it's running your tests in parallel on your local machine on two emulators. So yeah, so That's a small, just a demo test that I ran. So it's pretty easy to set up, but it would be more useful if you had like many VMs running, and then you would have many emulators running on each VM, and then you can register on one machine. You can have your Selenium Grid running, and then you can connect your devices there, and you can make your tests run in parallel that way. Do you have any questions? Because this was the most important part. Okay.
Do you have any demo with the Sauce Lab Cloud?
Yeah. I have. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Does it run on a real device?
Yeah. So it would run on a real device too, and it's pretty much the same setup. You don't have to do anything different, except the device name would be the device that is connected to your computer. So you can do ADB devices and see the device name there, whatever is assigned, and then you can use the same thing.
So you can plug in multiple devices on the USB port and then run your
Yes. You can do the
test.
same thing with your device.
I see.
The only catch is like with each device that you want to test with, you should have that many Appium sessions running, and they should register with the hub. So that's the only thing you need to worry about. Okay, so probably I just covered this in demo, that you need to configure your tests to run in parallel. So whatever framework you're using, make sure that you enable the flag that says to run the tests in parallel. So that should be pretty easy flag to switch on. Point all your tests to your remote WebDriver. So instead of using an Appium driver, you still use Appium driver, but instead of pointing it to a local host 4723 that you do for Appium tests, instead now you would be pointing to a hub port. So it would be, we started hub on 4444, so we would point the remote WebDriver to that port, to that URL, and then run the tests. That's as simple. Okay. So, I had more demos. So if we wanted to run on Sauce Labs, or like Sauce Labs is a grid provider on cloud, so you can point all your tests to Sauce Labs, and then Sauce Labs would take care to spin up the VM and run the tests. So I had one iOS demo that I wanted to show. I can. So I'm just running tests in parallel on Sauce Labs here. So you can just point to your tests. So if you had the same test and now you point it on Sauce, and then Sauce would run all the tests for you. So it would start up a grid for you, and then you can point all your tests and how many VMs you want, and then it would spin up